are tuning in with the hopes of hearing another episode of Unseen Libya. I am joined tonight by Jimmy and JoAnne via telephone. How are you guys doing?
We're okay, Jason.
Trying to put one foot after the other.
Exactly. Now, the reason why we're doing this show tonight on YouTube rather than our normal subscriber-exclusive show on Patreon and Subscribestar is because Jimmy and JoAnne have been hit by yet another cyber attack. There is no internet at their home. Jimmy, JoAnne, give us a little overview of exactly what's going on.
Well, what happened is all of a sudden the internet went down, and JoAnne went to reset it, and the lights were out. All the lights were out. It's on a surge protector device. The surge protector hadn't tripped. The modem was.
And the lights are out on the modem, not in your home, right? You still have electricity.
Yes, still got electricity, but this was on the modem, and everything's hardwired here. We don't use wireless for anything, so we're hardwired DSL from the phone line in, and then we're hardwired to the computers and everything. No wireless. Mm-hmm. So, plus I have above the router I have a Faraday cage.
Oh.
So that any spurious radiation is not going to get out of the router, and they're not going to get into it either. Mm-hmm. So the thing was completely dead, and when we called Windstream, they told JoAnne, well, the router, they'll have to have a service, and the quickest they could get service out of here was a week from today. And she said, but if you go by one of the service stations, if you find one of those, I said, yeah, there's one 2 miles from here, but I said, they don't have an office. She said, you'll have to go over there and find one of the trucks going out to do service and see if they'll swap the router out for you.
Right.
So I was over there at 6 o'clock this morning, and first guy shows up, and I showed him the router, and he said, well, no, this thing will reset. And he turned it in, plugged in. He said, this thing's completely dead. So he followed me back to the house, like I said, about 2 miles, and he has a device that's battery operated. He could put a surge into the line, and he said, your surge protector's working because it turned off. He said, this is the strangest thing. He said, it's like this router was fried from the ground leg, and he said, that's exactly impossible. He said, I've never seen this before. So our resolution is we have to buy a new router, and there's not a router within 120 miles of us.
Wow.
So we're in deep southeast Texas, so we're absolutely out of business until Wednesday will be the quickest we'll be able to be back online for anything.
But
so we're on a cell phone right now.
And even those efforts will not stop us from bringing this information forward. There's been really a very surprising development today. I think everyone at this point already knows that Mohamed Morsi has died in court, and it was quite odd because he basically he said that he had secrets that he was going to reveal, and then he just passed out and died.
Well,
can you say right, Bart?
Yeah, they're gonna find a small hole where that heart attack needle, the dissolving needle shot from air gun. They'll look in his backside. They'll find the puncture hole.
Well, we're speculating, of course, when you say that, but I think that we agree that it seems like an extremely coincidental time for Morsi to die. Now, the reason why I felt it was so important for us to go forward with our show today was not only because we don't want to disappoint all of our sponsors on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, but also because this is something that you have both been telling us about for some time. Mohamed Morsi's connection to the Muslim Brotherhood, Hillary Clinton, and you've both just shared with me prior to this call that Egypt and Libya are like brother and sister. Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, Egypt and Libya are very, very close. They're both tribal societies, but they've inbred for hundreds of years. So there's a lot of Egyptian blood in the Libyans and a lot of Libyan blood in the Egyptians, and they're very close. They were very, the last president, who was, Mubarak, yeah. He was very, very close.
Plus, yeah, best friend of the United States and that whole region, you know.
Yeah, he would. What Hillary Clinton just wrote a new book. It's just coming out, and she said when Morsi was removed, he was removed because 30 million Egyptians took to the street to remove him. He was destroying Egypt, and when he was removed, the U.S. did nothing because she said the Egyptian army and the Egyptian country is too big, too powerful. The Egyptian army is the biggest army in the world.
A third of the people of Egypt went into the streets. Not the military. This was an organic uprising of the people because Christians were being killed. Hundreds of thousands of Christians were being killed. The Muslim Brotherhood was absolutely turning that into a fascist state. The tourism in Egypt, which is their biggest moneymaker, was completely killed. Nobody wanted to go to Egypt at the time. So the people had an uprising, and they went and grabbed the general and pushed him into Morsi's office to arrest the guy.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the NATO thing just a minute, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in the Arab Spring? The target was Libya in Arab Spring. Now they had to take over Egypt to get Libya because Egypt would have stood with Libya, and the U.S. and NATO could not have taken down Libya. So they had to have an Arab Spring in Egypt. They had to take Mubarak out. They had to put the Muslim Brotherhood moron Morsi in, and Hillary Clinton's best friend, their 30-year best friend. So this was one of their plan. You know, it was part of their target area. Mm-hmm. And if that had not happened, they would not have taken Libya down.
But Egypt became so corrupted almost overnight. The tribes delivered us a list of the 17 top officials of Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt that had received cash payments from the Secretary of State's office at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, ranging from $850,000 per the top guy down to $250,000 for the lowest paid. They all signed their name to those payments. When Morsi, when the uprising took place and Morsi's office was invaded by the military, his personal safe was opened, and there was that list of the top Muslim Brotherhood and their payments. Also, there was a document in there where the President of the United States at the time bought half of the Sinai Peninsula for $8 billion so Muslim Brotherhood would have a homeland. And after the general was put into office in Egypt, a call came from the White House, and Obama demanded that first the $8 billion with a B be returned, and all the documents pertaining to that be returned. And the general said, I don't think so. We're going to do our own investigation here, but there's not any money going back to anybody, and there's no partitioning of the Sinai Peninsula.
Right.
So there's a whole lot to what happened in Egypt. But
one thing, Jason, is that the media is coming out today and saying that Morsi was the only democratically elected president. That couldn't be more farther from the truth ever. There were not that many people in Egypt that even got to vote. Muslim Brotherhood was at every voting station.
I think there were 10 million votes was all that were counted.
Out of 100 million, yeah. And also, when they overthrew Morsi, it was not a military coup like they're reporting. It was the people of Egypt who asked General Sisi to go in and take his place, and then they had an election, a duly fully democratic election, and elected General Sisi as president of Egypt.
It was completely monitored by the UN, completely monitored. Every single voting booth was monitored, and he won by such a popular, it was 80 or 85%, huge majority. So, the media cannot tell the truth. Morsi was not a duly elected. 10 million, and normally Egyptians have 40 to 50 million people to vote during one of their elections. So a 10 million vote is minuscule.
He was a puppet installed to keep Egypt from helping Libya, and then whatever else beyond that.
Right.
But also, Dr. Corsi wrote another article where we gave him the document that proves that Morsi was the one who was the people that they captured gave Morsi up and said he's the one that paid for, planned, and
trained and coordinated.
Yeah, coordinated
the Benghazi attack.
The Benghazi, yeah.
Right.
And he had said that he was going to expose the Secretary of State play in that entire operation.
Morsi
I'm
said
sure
that.
That's why he got killed in his trial.
Wow. So you're saying Morsi said he was going to expose. This is an article Dr. Corsi wrote back in 2013 when Benghazi was still a fresher topic than it is today. I think most people in the general public have sort of forgotten about this already, basically kind of falling for Hillary's what difference does it make at this point. But I think it makes a lot of difference, and it's very interesting to note that this guy, Mohammed Morsi, who the news basically wants us to think, oh, this nice guy who was the first democratically elected guy, he died in court. Oh, next topic. But the fact is, there are a lot of suspicious circumstances surrounding his death and his involvement in this Benghazi attack, and the fact that the guy comes out and says he has secrets that he can reveal and then dies right away. What do we think about the close time proximity in this death as related to the death of Hillary Clinton's brother, Tony?
Well, all this, there's disclosure coming out day by day. It's flooding out, But if you remember, in the disclosure we did on Benghazi, there was a copy of the security report from the Libyan government. And in that, they detail Morsi's position and his coordination and instigation, if you would. And the only way he could have done it is if he had all the information and the timeline and everything of Chris Stevens' activities while in Benghazi. So, that security report, there's a translation. We released that on Patreon when we did the complete Benghazi disclosure.
Right.
But when you have this kind of a threat coming forward, obviously the authorities here in the United States don't want anybody to know what happened in Benghazi. Mm-hmm. Not the Republicans, not the Democrats.
They don't want anybody to know the truth about the Arab Spring either, what that was about. And that was all a false flag.
So the thing that he was going to do, because he has been in jail, I think, since the popular uprising, and so he was there to defend himself. They brought him up on charges of being a traitor and a spy for the United States and all kinds of stuff, and to protect his backside, because I think he's only about 67 years old. He was gonna unload the garbage disposal and release all the information and all the documents and everything that were already in the hands of the prosecutors, because they had gotten that out of his safe. If he had not believed that the U.S. wouldn't step in and protect him, then he would have for sure destroyed all that damning information that was in his safe in his office. He didn't do that.
But it was their form of protection, the heart attack dart. Yeah. I don't think he planned on that.
So, and he was adamant. He was not going to leave office. He was not going to do it. The U.S. was going to step in, and they had to physically take him out of his office.
Right. And people have told me that, of course, the heart attack dart that you're talking about is the one that William Colby testified about during the church committee hearings, and that was in 1978 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, the heart attack gun, and there's some testimony from a CIA scientist, some sort of a doctor or a scientist, who this woman explains to us how the heart attack gun used a pellet that was frozen liquid that was made from something derived from a shellfish, and that it was like a sewing needle that would penetrate the skin and dissolve, leaving no evidence but causing a heart attack. Many people have told me that there are substantially more sophisticated ways of these types of silent assassinations happening now, using electromagnetic energy weapons and all kinds of things that would be just as surprising to hear about today as people must have been surprised to hear in 1978. Shockingly, very few people really know about this outside of the world of alternative independent media. And talking about these kind of topics that generally get people thrown off of YouTube, I would like to welcome the hundreds of viewers that we have today who maybe haven't seen our ongoing series, Unseen Libya, with Jimmy and JoAnne Moriarty. We do this show every Monday night, and it's normally happening on Patreon and Subscribestar. People can go to patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth, or subscribestar.com/Crowdsource the Truth. And it's really important that we have everybody's support, because even what we're talking about right now, tonight, because it doesn't fit the narrative that's being pushed out by CNN and AP and the New York Times and the Washington Post, we're in danger of having this taken off of YouTube and having the channel taken down. So we really do need everyone's support, and we are doing the show on these alternative platforms. If people haven't heard Jimmy and JoAnne before, you can also go to their website, LibyanWarTheTruth.com. They're regularly posting news articles, information that's coming directly to them from the tribes of Libya. We just did a show last week about the ancient tribes and the governmental structure there in Libya. People can also order the DVD Escape from Al-Qaeda. This is a DVD that Jimmy and JoAnne put together that details their harrowing escape from what was almost certain death. They were nearly captured by terrorists in Libya when they left there in 2011 as NATO and the United States were destroying that country. This DVD is $15 and it's $5 to ship it within the United States. If you sponsor Jimmy and JoAnne on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, you're going to get the DVD with free shipping. So that's a $5 value. Now, guys, have we thought much or spoken much about the recent death of Hillary's brother, Tony Rodham? I feel like it's been mentioned, but just in passing, and it sort of seems like it would have been a bigger deal.
Well, but that was another cover-up. Look at all the people just in the last 2 weeks that have died. You know, the gal in Arkansas who was going to go give testimony on the 2 sets of books for
Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Foundation.
Oh no,
was
but that was for the
child for the Child Protective Services. They had 2 sets of books, and payments were going into an income-bearing posture, and all the income was going into the Clinton Foundation. She was going to testify on that. All of a sudden, she suicided. I want to correct one thing about our DVD, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
We were captured by Al-Qaeda.
Yes.
We were taken to their torture center. We were to be killed and chopped up and burned, and got out of there with 3 miracles. So we were actually in the death throes of the bad guys. Yeah, had AK-47s in our face, and we were to be killed, and we got out of there with 3 miracles. Also, one other thing, we've added a CD of updates of everything they've done to us since we made the DVD, so it's actually a 2-disc set for $15. We really appreciate everybody. That gives a whole lot of information you're not going to see anyplace else. But the thing about, I'm going to go now, that all the people that are killed are suicided. You know, when a guy has to shoot himself twice in the back of the head to commit suicide, you know, he's really serious about killing himself.
Right.
And you see these kind of abnormalities all the time. And, you know, her brother had a whole lot of trash, and he was getting pressure. And, as you know, he had alcohol problems and all kinds of drug problems and everything else. And they had him in a corner. And all of a sudden he has a very untimely demise.
Cause of death still unknown, Jimmy. Cause of death still unknown.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's what I said.
Well, I think they dug up Vince Foster, and his body was stolen from the morgue
Really?
after they dug him up. This was not too long ago.
Wow, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think it was about a year ago. They dug him up. They were what do they call it? De-interred him or whatever. Yeah, and they took him to the morgue. There was going to be a big study on him because so many people knew that it was a cover-up. And all of a sudden, the body is now missing.
Bloomberg says the Navy did not do, well, wait a minute. Now, here's judge orders Vince Foster exhumed. Is this true?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was exhumed, and then they were going to do the study. Everybody thought, oh, yay, we're going to find out something finally. And it says Vince Foster's body disappears from the morgue. That was the next thing.
Huh. Now, so
But
this
then, of
is...
course, the spin from the media was, well, he never was exhumed.
Oh, wait a minute. This says the truth, the summary of a rumor. The truth is, according to this website, a federal judge has not ordered that Vince Foster's remains help determine... Wait a minute. Has not ordered that Vince Foster's remains... This article is written in a nonsensical way. I don't know. We're going to have to look into that some more about Vince Foster.
Well, when the key witness is missing, then you say whatever you want. I mean, the thing is, you get a piece of information comes out, and then all of a sudden that information is absolutely defamed from all angles. When I see that, then I'm pretty sure that first piece of information was correct. And the blatant lies, and they're not even good lies, Jason. They're not even good lies. The things that are put out, by the media, I don't see how they got anybody listening to them anymore.
Now, here's an interesting thing.
Mainstream.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I am pretty fascinated with the death of Vince Foster because there's just so many anomalies in the evidence surrounding it. There was an article, an opinion piece by Sean Willents in the New York Times, September 5th, 2018. Why was Kavanaugh obsessed with Vince Foster? And this author demands that Kavanaugh explain why he followed right-wing conspiracy theories about the White House aide's suicide. Well, he may in fact have been following evidence and demanding a legitimate investigation. It really is frustrating when morons call an investigation into something a conspiracy theory. It's quite sad, actually, that the phrase conspiracy theory has become synonymous with false rumor, which it doesn't even make sense as far as what that describes. There are many people who conspire to commit crimes, and in trying to solve those crimes, it's pretty often the practice that we first form a theory and then run that theory down by comparing it with evidence. So I'm going to have to read this article in the New York Times, but we're getting a bit far afield here. It's interesting, however, it's not that far afield because Vince Foster was very closely connected to the Clintons. I don't know if people are aware even of Whitewater anymore. I think people watching Crowdsource the Truth are aware of it, but if you just ask the average person in New York City, Dallas, Houston, Miami, they don't know what Whitewater was. If they do, they think it was a land deal that went bad that Republicans are trying to slam the Clintons over. But Vince Foster was a partner at the Rose Law Firm, knew very well what was going on at the start of the Clinton empire, and a lot of people believe that he was eliminated, as you guys have pointed out, these anomalous suicides. Morsi collapsing in the courtroom. I mean, sure, the guy's in jail, he's probably not that healthy, but still, you come out and say, I've got secrets that I could reveal, and then die, that's problematic.
Yeah,
sure is.
It's pretty obvious.
They hand him the megaphone, and all of a sudden he keels over.
Right.
And really, for the audience, if you give them a picture that'll hopefully adhere to some of their cells that are still firing, if you can picture this guy getting a needle in his backside from an air gun and it kills him, then that's something, gosh, can that really happen? It has happened so many times and been validated by authorities inside the CIA and FBI and others. Yeah, that gun exists. It's been around for 50, 60 years. They've improved it,
Well,
and all that stuff.
I always get back to Breitbart.
Yeah.
Because he was just a healthy guy in his 40s walking down the street and dropped dead.
Well, Lee Stranahan tells us that Andrew Breitbart had congenital heart disease. I mean, I don't want us to get too far down the road of speculating. While I agree that any of these things are possible, I don't want us to jump to conclusions because I think part of what is done
that's true, Jason. It's
muddy
just that
the
he
waters.
was investigating, I think, the Clintons at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what this is saying is the 67-year-old, I'm looking at the Associated Press right now, which, I mean, even if you just read the headline and forget about all the facts that you're discussing with Morsi's potential involvement in Benghazi and the noose tightening around the Clintons as people need to back up and look at this in a kind of a holistic sense. You know, we've had still pretty recently the Bob Mueller investigation has wrapped up. Donald Trump seems to be gathering strength in his presidency. He's announced that the Justice Department is going to begin investigating the origins of this Russia investigation. I think people watching this show would agree that investigation had no basis in fact. So the question becomes, why would they mount an unprecedented investigation into a president with no facts, with no basis in fact, and drag it out for so long? Could it be that they're trying to hide some of these things, trying to cover some of these things? And Charles Ortel has told us about the billions of dollars that the Clintons have funneled through the Clinton Foundation, and the contracts, the opportunities, the access that people can attain through that, let's call it what it is, bribery, is incredibly valuable, and there could be a lot of people who have a lot to hide. So just this headline says, Egypt's ousted president dies in court during trial. How many times has that happened? It just seems like such a unusual circumstance. It really causes us to question, you know, what else may have been going on. I understand Morsi was presented in a glass cage. Perhaps that was to prevent this type of attack.
I don't know, Jason, but if I had the internet up, we have a lot of contacts inside the Egyptian tribes because of the Libyan tribes who've introduced us to the Egyptian tribes. We've had a bunch of colonels and captains and military people and other people, doctors and such, that know us very well in Egypt, and I'm sure that we can get the absolute on-the-ground story of what actually happened in a matter of days.
The frequencies have been identified that can cross-wire all the nerve synapses, and they can absolutely stop a heart and start it again from just radio frequencies. And so, how well they can direct those, they miniaturize a parabolic or whatever, So, I mean, there's a lot of options out there. The needle is a visual that people can understand. But really, the amount of devices that the bad guys have to cause people to...
Well, how about poisoning his food in prison?
The computer in
Jimmy,
our car was that.
Aren't there a million ways they could kill somebody in prison, poison his food, or do anything like that?
Yeah, but he kept thinking somebody was going to step up and bail him out and indemnify him, put him on a plane, he can be in Tahiti living the rest of his life. And when that never happened, because the amount of influence from the Obama and the Clinton administration is no longer effective, to protect him. And so he was going to try to buy himself some liberty. And, when somebody starts making those kind of noises and you're going against the machine, then, of course, the easiest thing to do is remove the witness, because when the key witness is missing, then your defense is real easy. That's why attorneys say the easiest defense is a capital offense, because the key witness is always missing. So when Morsi's dead, it can be real hard for anybody to say, well, he was going to say this or he's going to say that, because everything that has to do with him is erased. It's gone.
Right. Yeah.
They zapped our computer. They were going to run us into headlong.
In your car.
How does that happen?
Right.
I mean, these things can be done, and it's not a nice thing to think about our government and our intelligence agencies doing these things, but it's a part of life.
Well, we have a lot of protection.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great offers.
Right. Well, I just wanted to point out, I mean, this is just so remarkable. I don't know, I can't overstate this, but Morsi had just addressed the court, speaking from the glass cage he's kept in during sessions, and warning that he had many secrets he could reveal, a judicial official said. A few minutes afterwards, he collapsed in the cage, and the official said, speaking on condition of anonymity, because he wasn't authorized to talk to the press. So, I mean, there's a lot of... Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood accused the government of assassinating him. So let's talk about Morsi's connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, is that something that's openly admitted? It seems to be here.
Oh, yeah. 100%
He was a Muslim Brotherhood candidate for the phony election when he got elected to president, And Mubarak had been a friend of the United States forever. Why the United States was overthrowing doing a regime change in a country where the leader had been most friendly to the United States for 30 years didn't make any sense.
No,
and
Egypt,
openly Muslim Brotherhood, and Muslim Brotherhood actually took over the country and started killing Coptic Christians and other Christians. There were several 100,000 Christians that were killed. Muslim Brotherhood was turning the country into a radical Sharia state.
Yeah, well,
kill their tourism.
Yeah, the thing is, like Libya, the majority, I would have to say 97% of Libyans, probably the same amount of Egyptians, are not radical, and they don't like radicals. And you have to understand that if you are a radical person, radical Islamist, you hate the non-radical Islamists worse than, or Muslim people worse than you do the Christians. I mean, I've been told that many times by the Libyans that, they hate us more. We are under attack more than you because we are not part of their radical thing.
Muslims.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there's not more reporting about this Morsi death in court. I'm looking here at Drudge Report. It doesn't have it as a headline. I mean, this is it's not even on the front page. I don't understand why that would be. We would think that people would be interested in hearing about this. It's really astounding how much influence this cabal still has. I mean, this can't be. I mean, this is as conspicuous as Jack Ruby walking right up to Oswald, shooting him, and then dying in prison himself. It's just
out of sight, out of mind.
But Jason, the thing about it is, when you have someone that thinks of themselves as royalty, like the Clintons do, anybody around them could be investigated to go back to them. You can't have that investigated.
Right.
It has to be shut down. Not only do they have to die, the person with the information, but you cannot have an investigation, so you can't have it in the media.
Wow. Yeah, and that's surprising. I mean, Hillary Clinton's brother, I would think if someone in her, I mean, she's in the news every day. You would think her brother dying would at least be a headline. It just seems like it was a tweet and then it got sort of shoved under the rug. Well, Jimmy and JoAnne, we're going to kind of keep today's show a little bit short. I know you guys are sort of hovering over the phone there. Normally, we're doing the show each week on Patreon and Subscribestar, and we've got Jimmy and JoAnne coming in with live video information that they receive from the tribes in Libya, videos that they've shot in Libya. People can go back and explore that library by going to patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. All of these videos that we've been talking about tonight, people can go back and see by getting onto Patreon there, and it's a great way to support Jimmy and JoAnne. I mean, even the stuff that we're talking about right now very possibly could go against what YouTube thinks is information that you should be able to hear. And in addition to supporting people like Jimmy and JoAnne who come onto the show and share information that is not popular with corporate media and their advertisers, it's really important that we keep these other avenues open, because YouTube has spent about 10 or 15 years convincing everybody that it's free, but it's actually not. They have stolen from you your right to choose what you get to see and what you get to hear. So Jimmy and JoAnne, what else do we want to say, or is there anything more to say at this time about the death of Mohamed Morsi earlier today at his trial there in Egypt? Really shocking news.
Yeah, I think there's some obvious points that we can make some assumptions on, but I would like everybody to join us next week on Unseen Libya on Patreon with you, Jason, because in the meantime we have some very substantial contacts into Egypt, and we're going to have a full report along with other things next week. That I think this Morsi story is going to be unfolding.
Yeah, in Egypt, it's a big story. The rest of the world, they need it to be covered up, Yeah. Too many questions.
Well, you can put Chris Stevens in that same basket,
Absolutely. Perhaps next week we'll have a better answer for the question from Madam Secretary with regard to what difference does this make at this point. Anyway, the difference that it makes is that if she was conspiring with terrorists and paying mercenaries to assassinate U.S. ambassadors, destroy entire countries, I think that makes a little bit of a difference. We're going to need to find out more next week. Jimmy and JoAnne, thanks so much for joining me, even in this internet adversity that you're facing there. I hope that people will join us on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty and patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth. We'll be back with you guys next week, and hopefully we'll have some information directly from the tribes. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jason. Keep us in your prayers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Okay.